My name's Latasha Marshall, and I make bad choices.
Coming in?
I shouldn't. Stay away from my husband.
You want everything up, Tash?
I didn't ask for any of this. Maybe I already passed.
From the Roots Up, the Latasha Marshall Story by Brandon Dominic Ray, Chapter 2. Wow, he got a wife. The moment I heard the voice on the other end of the phone, I regretted answering. It was Portia. We'd been best friends for as long as I can remember, and she had the ability to be both judgmental and smothering. That shit is so annoying. I was pretty sure she was calling because I had canceled dinner at the last minute. I know Portia better than I know myself. I also know that not answering her call would probably send her into an anxiety attack, so I decided I'd answer, not before bracing myself for a lecture. "Girl, where are you?" she demanded, her tone a mix of concern and irritation. I let out a very loud sigh. "Why are you calling me?" I was irritated that she was treating me like a child, keeping tabs on me like I wasn't grown. I was about to be 31 in less than 2 months. Even my own mother knew better than to tell me what to do. Sure, I had moments where I say fuck it, and most times I do regret my decisions. But at the end of the day, it's not Portia's business. The way I see it is, we only get one life, and I plan to live it on my own terms. I'm not hurting anybody except maybe myself, and that's my choice. I don't have no kids. I have a stable home and a good job. Shit. By the time my mom was my age, she had 2 kids, a dead-end job, and we were always struggling for a place to call home. So yeah, I understand that Portia's intentions were good, but at that moment, I honestly couldn't care less. I tend to be very short-tempered. Before I knew it, I was yelling at the top of my lungs, "Shut the fuck up." I rarely spoke like that to anyone, especially not Portia. I just didn't have time for the unsolicited lecture. There was complete silence for at least 20 seconds. Then, of course, she started right back up with the same nonsense. "You're out here acting reckless, hoeing around. And why do you think you're talking to me that way, girl? You got me fucked up." I hung up the phone as she was ranting, then blocked the random number she was calling from, along with her contact. I made a mental note to unblock her later and call to apologize when I had the energy. But for now, I decided to embrace the silence as I drove home. My thoughts began to drift, as they always did, and I couldn't help but think about Jason. I replayed that night in my mind over and over, like an old VHS tape, searching for something to be wrong with him. He seemed perfect, yet I started to question whether I had made the right decision by abruptly leaving that Roach Motel. The truth is, I felt something when I was with him, and it kind of pissed me off. I snapped back to reality as I pulled into my assigned parking spot in my gated community. I sat in my truck for a moment, admiring the neighborhood. I lived in one of the best condominium communities in my area. It's a gorgeous high-rise, modern brick building, quiet, well-maintained, and safe. The atmosphere gave me a sense of calm, and I needed that. I've owned my 2-bedroom unit for over 2 years now, and it's still one of the best decisions I've ever made. Being able to buy a home and create stability for myself was incredibly important. I never truly felt at home anywhere until I bought my condo. For much of my life, I had been searching for security, but finally realized I needed to create it myself. There's something so powerful about having a space that's entirely your own. It's more than just a roof over your head. It's the first time I've ever felt truly safe and at peace. I began gathering my things from the passenger seat, preparing to head inside. I decided I would order breakfast from the Eats app. Once I got home and settled, My stomach was growling so loud it sounded like a wounded elephant. A hot meal sounded like the perfect way to wind down after such a wild, crazy night. I exited my truck and quickly walked towards the building. I scanned my silver key card, waiting for the panel to turn green, and pulled open the large steel door. I stepped into the well-lit lobby, making sure to ensure that the door behind me closed. "Morning, Manny," I said, greeting the doorman. He was sitting behind the information desk, happily munching on a huge bowl of tacos and rice. I couldn't resist asking, "Why aren't you at the door doing your job?" He grinned and replied casually, "This job does itself." I rolled my eyes and walked to the elevator, waiting patiently for it to reach the lobby. I took the elevator up to the 9th floor, entered my passcode, and waited for the doors to open. As soon as the elevator door opened, I stepped into my sanctuary. At home at last, I muttered to myself, feeling a sense of relief wash over my entire body. I tossed my keys and purse onto the counter, pulled out my phone, and placed my breakfast order. Once I was done, I sat down my phone and headed towards the living room. I froze, stopping dead in my tracks. Portia was sitting on my couch. I was at a loss for words. All I could do was stare. Irritation and confusion took over my body. "How did you even get into my building, let alone my unit?" I demanded. In a very unbothered tone, she replied, "You gave me the passcode in case of emergencies." I couldn't believe this heifer had driven across town, 8 months pregnant, just to break in my damn house. It was Manny's job to notify me when guests entered the building, and I was pissed he didn't tell me a damn thing. I made a mental note to find out who his employer was so that I could let them know that he was doing a piss poor job. I turned to Portia and reminded her that guests had to be approved before they were allowed upstairs. She stood up, purposefully bumping into me as she walked past. For a split second, I almost forgot how much I loved her. My first instinct was to push her ass to the floor. Then I remembered she was pregnant. She stared me down as if she was daring me to try something. "I told them it was an emergency. Duh," she said. I watched as if she opened my cabinet, grabbed a glass, and poured herself a cold drink. Then she pulled the tall black bar stool away from the counter and sat down. She looked at me with a serious expression. "We need to talk," she said, like we were in a relationship. I rolled my eyes, folded my arms across my chest, and asked, "About what?" I knew exactly what she wanted to talk about, but I decided to play dumb. I could tell this was about to escalate into a full-blown argument. Portia could never just let anything go. She'd been this way her entire life. Mama Portia, always up in somebody's business, always trying to discipline folks who were grown. She turned to face me, her expression even more serious. "Who you been fucking?" she asked. I laughed. "Nobody." But before I could even finish my sentence, she cut me off. "You a lie. I know your ass wasn't working last night," she said. My intentions were to look Portia straight in the eyes and lie as if it were easy. I maintained a straight face, determined to take last night to the grave. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could form a single word, the door buzzer interjected. I walked over to the intercom, firmly held down the white button, and asked, "Who is it?" Then I released it and waited. Manny's voice crackled through the speaker. "You have a visitor." I rolled my eyes, even though he couldn't see me, and pressed the button again. "Okay, who is the person, Manny?" "I don't know," he replied. "It's some lady. I'm not sure. Can I send her up or not?" I again reminded myself to contact his employer as soon as I had time because he was absolutely horrible at this job. Frustrated, I instructed Manny to send the person up, assuming that it was the delivery person with my breakfast. I started walking towards the elevator when Portia asked, "So, who's on the way up here?" I turned around. "Are you serious? I know you heard Manny say that it was the food delivery person." Portia got up from her seat and immediately started pulling down plates and silverware. I raised an eyebrow. "So wait, you plan on staying to eat?" She shot a look. Your nephew is hungry, and we're not done talking. You're not about to keep lying to me." I let out a sigh because I already was mentally exhausted. I didn't have the energy to go back and forth with her. A part of me hoped she would eat and then go the hell home. I was still drained from my little encounter with Jason. Bing! The elevator chimed, alerting me that it had reached my floor. The doors opened, revealing a medium-framed, beautiful chocolate queen. She wore a simple pin skirt and flats. Nothing fancy, but well put together for a delivery driver. Then I remembered I'd forgotten to grab cash for a tip. I motioned to the woman that I needed a moment to grab the money. I noticed her expression shifted to confusion. "Money for what?" she blurted out. "Yes, love bug, it's for your tip," I replied. I hurried back to the elevator with $5 in my hand. I froze when I realized the woman wasn't holding my food. "Where's my food, love bug?" I asked, confusion all over my face. She calmly replied, "I don't have any food for you. My name is Vanessa. I think you know my husband." "Your husband?" I repeated, letting out a nervous chuckle. "I'm sorry, but you must have gotten off on the wrong penthouse floor. I'm waiting on my food delivery. If you go back downstairs, Manny the doorman, he should be able to point you in the right direction." I motioned for her to re-enter the elevator, dismissing her the best way I could. But then she said something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Jason, that's my husband. You know him, right? I followed you here from Motel Essex. You spent the night with him, correct, love bug?" she said in a very sarcastic tone. Before I could even respond, Portia, who had been lurking behind me, let out a loud, "Bitch, I know you fucking lying." Vanessa looked over at Portia, very unbothered. No, I'm not lying. I've been following my husband since yesterday evening. Look, love bug." She held up her phone, displaying a tracking app. "I don't know what this is, but I don't want any problems with you," she continued. "My issue is with my husband. I just want to know how long you've been fucking him." "Married?" I said to myself. Oh, I was pissed. His old cheap, cheating ass. The thought made my blood boil. It was the fact that he had me in a cheap, nasty-ass motel room like some $2 hoe. He could have just been honest, and we could have gotten a room at the Hilton. I didn't give a fuck about him being married. I fucked plenty of married men. The truth is, I didn't owe any loyalty to his stupid-ass wife, or anyone's wife for that matter. I'll admit, though, I've never had a wife this bold. This bitch was standing flat-footed, 10 toes down in my house. The fact that she showed up to question me was insane. I was desperately trying to keep my composure. The truth is, I was on the verge of slapping the hell out of this woman. I took a deep breath and said, "Ma'am, lady, Vanessa, you need to handle this with your husband. You just admitted to following me home, and that's a crime. Honestly, I'm very uncomfortable with this situation. It's best you leave and go talk to your husband." She stood there silently, desperate for answers. I couldn't help but feel a little bad for her, but I could see that this was going to be a problem. I could see the heartbreak all over her face. She truly loved this man and believed every one of his lies. I could honestly empathize with her because he had made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. I'm sure her whole universe was crashing down. But at the end of the day, I hadn't done anything wrong. Bing! The elevator chimed, and when the doors opened this time, it was the food delivery person. Portia boldly walked over to me and aggressively snatched a $5 bill from my hand and handed it to the delivery driver in exchange for my meal. I returned to Vanessa. It would be wise for you to ride down the elevator to the first floor with the delivery driver, please. Vanessa apologized and warned, you don't need to tell me what's a crime. I know the law very well. My advice to you is to stay away from my husband. I replied, again, you need to speak to your husband, love bug. I thought to myself, the things that man did to me, she should never want his ass back. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't let him do it again. I definitely require 5-star treatment and room service this time, but the truth is he could absolutely get it again. Poor Tink Tink, I thought as I watched her enter the elevator and the doors slowly closed. I could feel Portia eyeballing me. Slowly, I turned around and found her standing at the bar, devouring my entire breakfast. She had the audacity to offer me a bite of my own omelet. I declined and muttered under my breath, you big bag bitch. I informed Portia she needed to leave as soon as she was finished eating. Portia turned around and asked, and if I don't? I snapped, you better waddle your ass the fuck out my house before I go off. She looked at me and said, girl, bye. I ain't little Miss Pinsker. I would have rocked your shit. All that love bug this and love bug that. You are a disrespectful hoe. You ain't finna do shit. She finished the last of my breakfast, then waddled over to the couch and plopped down like she hadn't just eaten my food. Once she made herself comfortable, she motioned for me to sit beside her. As soon as I sat down, she put her arm around me and got so close to my face that I could smell the extra onions I had ordered on that omelet. She chuckled before asking, so you gonna tell me why you were at a nasty-ass motel with this lady's husband? I simply replied, nope. She leaned back on the couch, hand resting on her stomach, genuinely shocked that I wasn't spilling any tea. She continued to bug me, determined to get me to crack and tell her what went down. I sat in silence, and I couldn't take it anymore. Finally, I said, whatever you think I was doing there is what I was doing there. Just as I expected, she immediately started to lecture. Latasha, why you keep doing nasty stuff with these random men in dirty motels? His wife stalked you to your house. What if this man had kidnapped you or killed you? You gonna catch something one of these damn days. Or I was done with the conversation, so I didn't even let her finish. I was already irritated, especially because she kept judging me when her own life was far from perfect. I snapped, end up like what? Like you? Knocked up and abandoned for the third time? The words hit the air before I could stop them, and the second they left my mouth, I regretted it. I could see the hurt in Portia's eyes. I knew I'd hit a nerve. I went below the belt. I knew this was a sore subject for her. I was dead wrong for going there. I couldn't bring myself to apologize. I was still so damn annoyed that she had just invited herself into my house like it was nothing. It felt justified, the anger, even though I knew my words had crossed the line. Portia grabbed her purse and keys off the light blue coffee table in front of us. She didn't say another word as she walked to the elevator, pressed the button to open the doors, turned and looked me dead in the eyes. "You need help, you know that?" she said. I couldn't take her seriously. I jokingly replied, "Bitch, you and me both." I figured I'd already crossed the line, so I might as well say everything I was feeling. My insults usually didn't even faze her. She continued, "I was just worried about you. If you don't want better, I can't make you want it." I leaned back on the couch, fluffed a pillow, and placed it under my head, purposefully avoiding her gaze. I refused to acknowledge her words, focusing on anything but her. "Portia, text me when you get home so I know you made it safe," I said in a very dismissive tone. I could tell I was getting under her skin. I could see the rage on her face, and I braced myself for what I thought was coming next. One thing I knew about Portia was that she could be ruthless when she got angry. Surprisingly, she calmly said, "I'm going to take the high road and walk away. Enjoy the rest of your day, whore. Oh, and if your sister wife come back, I hope she beats your ass." I smirked, unable to help myself. "Oh, is that what you're learning in counseling?" I taunted. I had butterflies in my stomach. It was crazy that, pregnant or not, I was genuinely afraid of Portia. When those elevator doors finally slid shut, I let out a deep sigh of relief. I was scared as hell, but I'd never let her know that. I stretched out on the couch, pretending to be completely unbothered. I laid there scrolling through social media, but the truth was, Jason was still on my fucking mind. I've been lying if I said his wife showing up to my house didn't bother me. I had so much mess swirling through my head, it was no surprise he showed up in my dreams. I dreamt I confronted him about being married, and he admitted to lying and cheating on his wife. We had a conversation, the kind that feels so real to just be a dream. I looked him dead in the face and asked, "Where did you tell her you were last night?" He answered without hesitation. I told her I went to Sprouts, and on my way out the store, I met a man with no legs, no arms, and no eyes who needed a ride home. I told her we got lost because he couldn't give me directions, since, he didn't have eyes. I stared at him in complete disbelief, my mouth slightly open. "You're telling me she believed that?" I asked, needing confirmation that I hadn't lost my mind. He chuckled, clearly amused with himself. "No," he said. "I actually told her I picked up a second job at Sprouts because I love people and I enjoy the environment," I responded. "I've got you figured out. You like an old dumb bitch. One you can control and keep knocked up and tucked away at home, barefoot and pregnant tight, raising your babies, cooking, cleaning, and staying shut the fuck up." He didn't look offended. If anything, he looked amused. A smirk spread across his face as he stepped closer, completely invading my personal space. He placed his hands on the small of my back, his touch deliberate, possessive. Then he leaned in, his lips gently brushing my ears. He seductively whispered, "So, you gonna do what Daddy tells you to do?" I had never been a submissive type, but there was something about the way he formed words that just drove me crazy. The intensity of the dream escalated quickly. His touch, even in my dreams, blurred my thoughts. I questioned my ability to resist. My body betrayed me. I collapsed. He put his hands down my pants and undressed me. His voice dropped again. He whispered, "Submit." His words echoed throughout my body. This dream was spiraling into more reckless behavior. He spun me around and ripped my shirt open, tearing all of the buttons off my blouse. He bent me over and whispered again, "Submit." Suddenly, wonk, wonk, wonk. I was jolted from my sleep. It was my damn phone ringing. I sat straight up on the couch, heart racing. Damn, I muttered to myself. It was just getting good. I touched in between my legs and I had completely soaked my pants and my couch cushion. I couldn't believe I had a wet dream over a man who was a liar and a cheater, a married man. I stared at the wall, embarrassed and slightly disgusted with myself. But then again, I thought to myself, I might fuck him again. Something inside of me just wouldn't allow me to be rational. I like playing with fire. I had every intention on calling him and making all my dreams come true. Wonk, 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 wonk. My phone rang again, bringing me back to reality. Hello? I said. Tea time. Boundaries and standards. The objective. The goal of this section is to help you gain a deeper understanding of boundaries and standards, and to explore why both are essential in maintaining your overall well-being. Let's reflect. Find a quiet space where you can reflect without distractions. Take a few deep breaths and focus on your thoughts and feelings. Read the reflection questions below, slowly, one at a time. Use the space provided to write your answers honestly. There's no right or wrong answers. This is personal reflection time. Let's look at Latasha's situation. In the following section, you'll apply your understanding of boundaries and standards to the situation involving Latasha in Chapter 2. Do you think Latasha's boundaries were violated in any way throughout this chapter? Explain why or why not. Who do you think violated her boundaries? And what actions or behaviors are considered a violation? Describe specific behaviors and actions that crossed her boundaries. Do you think Latasha did a good job expressing that her boundaries were being violated? Please explain your answer in details. Review and reflection. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to review the general definitions provided below. Consider how your personal understanding of boundaries and standards compare to these descriptions. General definition of boundaries. Boundaries are the limits we set to protect our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. They help determine what behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable in our interactions with others. Healthy boundaries create personal space, encourage respect, and set the foundation for healthy relationships. They serve as a form of self-advocacy for our overall well-being. General definition for standards. Standards are the expectations we set for ourselves and others, reflecting the value we place on ourselves. They influence the decisions we make and determine the kind of behavior and treatment we are willing to accept from others. Maintaining clear standards help ensure that our relationships and actions are aligned with our values and self-respect. Now that you have read the definition above, take a moment to consider your own understanding. Personal reflection question 1. What do boundaries mean to you? How do you recognize them in your life? Personal reflection question 2. What do your standards mean to you? Are there areas of your life where you have compromised them? Personal reflection 3. Think about situations in your life where your boundaries and standards were challenged. How did you respond? Personal reflection 4. Where did you first develop an understanding of what feels right for you? How did you learn to establish your boundaries and standards? This is an essential process because it helps set the tone for how we are treated by others. Standards and boundaries are interconnected concepts. Standards define our expectations for ourselves and for others. Boundaries enforce those standards by establishing limits on behaviors and interactions. Complete the following exercise to understand your personal boundaries and standards. Number 1, list 3 places where you feel most safe. Number 2, list 3 situations where you have felt uncomfortable, uneasy, or drained. Number 3, list 3 things you value most in life. Number 4, list 3 topics that make you feel anxious, scared, or triggered. Next, we will identify your boundaries. This exercise will help you to recognize your boundaries and see where they may have been crossed, as well as areas where new boundaries might be needed. Using your answers from the previous page, match them with the categories below. Boundary type, that will be your answers. Physical, question 1. These are the places where you feel safe. Emotional boundaries will be question 2. Situations that made you feel uncomfortable or drained. Personal boundaries will be question 3. Things you value most. Mental boundaries will match with question number 4. Topics that make you feel anxious or triggered. Here are the definitions. Physical boundaries are spaces and environments where you feel safe and protected. Emotional boundaries, the emotional energy you can give without feeling overwhelmed. Personal boundaries, protect what matters most, your needs, beliefs, and priorities. And mental boundaries, safeguard your thoughts and mental well-being, avoiding overload. Now we will identify your standards. Consider your personal standards. Ask yourself what you expect from yourself and others. Below are examples. Form your own standards. Area, your standards. Self, example, I will prioritize my mental health. Others, example, I expect honesty in relationships. Use the space below to establish what your personal standards are for yourself and what your personal standards are for others. Conclusion. These statements will help ensure your boundaries and standards align with your personal value and well-being. That concludes chapter 2. I will see you guys in chapter 3.